the striatum is a key part of that, and so is dopamine. So let's dive into a little bit about what dopamine is, because there's a little bit, and this is not a myth-busting episode, we'll bring that back in a few weeks. We'll get Andrew back on to do some more, but dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, pleasure hormone. It's like, it makes your brain feel good. Again, a little bit too simplistic. What dopamine is, it's a neurotransmitter that helps you to achieve, it's pleasure seeking, it's reward seeking. So it helps you to form habits and goals. So at the neuron level, what dopamine does, it basically, we talk about this idea of neuroplasticity, what we practice, we get better at. Dopamine stimulates neuroplasticity. It helps us to develop new learning and brain cells. And the reason why your brain is so keen for this hormone is because learning keeps human beings alive. If we learn, bring it back to caveman times, if we learn when we're a caveman, we're hunting in the forest. If we are constantly learning during that process, we are more likely to survive than if we are unable to continuously take in new information, analyze it, and think about it. Our ability to reflect on information is the reason that human beings are so, and have dominated the planet. That ability to constantly be learning and developing new skills. And dopamine is one of the root neurotransmitters of that. It acts kind of like, again, slightly simplified, as a catalyst for neurogenesis and helping to generate those new connections, those new neurons in your brains. Specifically, but it's not pleasure. It doesn't just make your brain feel good. It's more complicated than that. It stimulates the connections and growths of new neurons in your brain. And more specifically, we're going to go into two different types of dopamine system in your brain. We simplify them, which I will do in this, but we'll just go into the complicated. We've got the mesolimbic dopamine system, mesolimbic, one of the two of them, or the mesocortical system. So the mesolimbic system is for short-term quick rewards. We use it for short-term quick rewards. In the caveman state, this was an immediate reaction, kind of an impulse, I guess. I'm using air quotes for impulse, but like impulsive actions and thoughts to achieve things in the moment that were quite good. Most animals run on impulse. For example, like if I give Bonnie, put a treat in front of Bonnie, she's going to eat it. That's her mesolimbic dopamine system going, I'm going to have that, thank you very much, and then go back to sleep. That's mesolimbic, right? The mesocortical dopamine system, or our pause circuitry, is the bit that evolved a bit later, which allows humans to kind of achieve long-term goals and release dopamine in anticipation of a longer-term reward, which allows for planning, for those, we talk about them as kind of prefrontal cortex executive functions going forward, like the things that are not as impulsive, things we require planning to, like kindness and these kind of skills, and these all develop like that. So the thing I want to talk about with these things specifically is that we live in a world today where lots of the stuff we consume actively activates, like specifically targets and activates one type of these dopamine systems far more than the other one. So social media is like a drug for your mesolimbic, your dopamine reward system. And it, like, if you like, we got a wet cloth and it just wrings it out of all the dopamine in that system. And talking about neuroplasticity, one of the real problems with, and this is kind of comes to attention span, although that's a slightly different thing. One of the problems with social media so much is that we get very, very used to short, quick dopamine rewards through the Go circuitry, through the Go architecture of our brain, through this mesolimbic system, that it strengthens and makes our mesolimbic system stronger, which means we get less dopamine from our mesocortical, our pause circuitry, which means it's harder for us to plan long-term in the future. So scrolling on social media all the time means that we are worse at planning in the future, because the different part of our neural architecture is being strengthened, which is why it's so important that we practice developing our mesocortical dopamine system. We practice setting goals and achieving them, because that is planning. That is strengthening that other type of dopamine reward system. And obviously we need a bit of both. There's a bit of give and take. Like mesolimbic dopamine system is when you're walking down the street and you fancy a donut because your blood sugar is low. Your mesolimbic system is like, let's get some sugar in me. I fancy that. And that's not a bad thing. That's fine. It's obviously more complicated than one system bad, one system good. But what we do need to try and live in is a bit more of a balance in it, and understanding that lots of the things we consume today are far too reliant on much more impulsive forms of dopamine kind of release and activation, which means that we are getting worse and worse at using that other type of system, which means we can plan longer term and getting worse at self-control and stuff like that because we're practicing the skill of being more impulsive. That was a very long explanation, so fair play for sticking through that.
Couldn't have been better, mate. I'll give you one of those, pal. We
Oh, look
don't
at
do that
that.
very
Round
often.
of applause.
No, man, that was
Thank you very much.
yeah, yeah. No one wants to hear me sing your praises, mate. But that was phenomenal. So big up yourself, man. That was
Thank you
grand.
very much.
And I think, there's not a lot for me to add. But I
Sorry.
think, no. Hey. No need to apologise. It was grand. And I think, you've said it all, man. But just habits, we always associate habits with. I always think that this might be a bit to do with my cynicism and pessimism. That habits I always associate with drinking and smoking and those negative habit forming and the way that they go into your meso
Mesolimbic, yeah.
like your mesolimbic system, and they're the things that integrate with that system, and that is a problem. As you said, it has to be delayed. You have to have instant gratification, and delayed gratification is basically the process of trying to work into your other, the other one that you said.
Mesocortical.
Your
But we
mesocortex.
call them pause and go to simplify it because it is like go
Thank
circuitry is
you.
like now and pause is I'm going to do that later. So
And as you can tell, I need it simplified. So that's, your pause and go circuitry, man. So, the fact that if you just associate those negative things that make us feel good instantly with your go circuitry, and you can become conscious and aware that you need to practice things to move away from that and make it the less predominant dopamine system, then you can go and work in and say, well, no, I ain't gonna have a cigarette today. I'm going to delay that sort of reward system because I know it makes me feel good, but it's doing no wonders for your body, is it? We know
mm,
that, right? And making sure that you start implementing the strategies that will help you move away from that quick, instant release of that system.
mm.
So forming positive habits is always where we try and steer people. Positive habits, positive habit forming instead of the negative scrolling, smoking, drinking, the things that are instant that we think make us feel good. It's a lie, it's a falsehood. It doesn't actually make us feel good. We think it does, our brains convince us of that. But then to practice our executive function skills, resilience, perseverance, patience, and to
Mm.
move away from the limbic system and move into the other one, the quick one, the long one, the patient one, the one that you
The
just chill
patient
out
one.
with.
The chill out system. Yeah.